Hello everyone, welcome back to an in-depth playthrough of the Myth series. Last time we talked about the history of the world of Myth, and I highly recommend watching that at some point to get deeper in the lore of Myth. But today, I am excited to show off the first level in Myth the Fallen Lords. When you start the game, there is a cheat to unlock all the missions. When you click on New Game, you press space or shift depending on whether you are playing Myth the Fallen Lords or Myth 2 Soulblighter, and then you'll see a full list of all the missions. I'm going to be playing this game on Legendary, of course. I'm going to do my best to do live commentary on all of the missions, but we will see if I hit some snags on any of them. My goal is that all of you watching will be able to take what you learn and beat the missions on Legendary yourself, if you haven't already. I have read that Bungie lowered the difficulty in Myth the Fallen Lords shortly after release in version 1.1 because people were complaining that the game was too difficult when it was released. I think this only applied to the easier difficulty settings and not to Legendary difficulty, but I am not 100% sure. I'm playing this game in TFL mode using the community plugin called the Fallen Levels. I'm also playing this with the HD texture mod. The texture mod makes the game look so nice. Alright, let's watch the journal entry and then I'll comment on that.
Wednesday, August 3rd, Crow's Bridge. Yesterday our Legion entered the village of Crow's Bridge and halted there for the night. We are just 4 days' march from the besieged city of Madrigal now, and with a little luck should arrive there in time to prevent its capture by the enemy. Shiver, one of the Fallen Lords, has been attacking the city for 2 days, but so far has been held back by its defenders. We all know the battle for Madrigal will decide the fate of all the northern lands, and that if it falls we will soon have nowhere to retreat but the ocean. Fearing for their safety, the villagers here pleaded with us to remain when we broke camp this morning. None of them understand yet what is happening, but they have all seen the refugees from the south, and they are frightened. Our officers seemed unsympathetic until the people returned with 9 young pigs and 10 dozen loaves of bread. 15 of us are to stay now, perhaps to fight boredom instead of the Fallen Lords, and watch the bridge here for 2 days.
The first thing I want you to notice is that the date on the journal is Wednesday, August 3rd. The date of the journal in the next mission is Tuesday, August 5th. Oops! I believe that Crow's Bridge is the odd one out when you look at the rest of the journal entries. Let's just say that this is actually Sunday. So on the map we can find Crow's Bridge, and it is a small village that is a part of the Free Cities of the North. The soldiers were on the way to Madrigal, that is being besieged by Shiver, who is one of the Fallen. The myth manual says this about the Fallen: 6 powerful wizards who were suborned by Balor. Among them, Shiver, the Deceiver, the Watcher, and Soulblighter. Balor is the main enemy in the game and is the leader of the Fallen. Most of the Fallen Lords were once on the side of the light and were either raised from the dead or converted to serve Balor. I can't say much about Shiver at this point because it contains spoilers. The Deceiver is exactly what his name implies and can't even be trusted by the Fallen. The Deceiver also goes by the names Source of the 500 Poisons. Balor has trouble keeping the reins on him, and we will see that shortly. We learned a lot about the Watcher in my first video. The Watcher is the main one raising the undead army and is one of the most powerful sorcerers in the world of Myth. We already know quite a bit about him since his history goes way back. As we discussed, his real name is Balal, but he also goes by Mad Goat of the Fens. Soulblighter is the most vicious of the Fallen Lords raised by Balor. We will learn about him and the rest of the Fallen Lords soon. Soulblighter also goes by the name Twiceborn. Now who are the other 2 Fallen Lords then? This is a good question, and there really is no good answer. You could get some names if you rely on GURPS or Myth pre-release information, but these names aren't in the game itself, so I am not going to go over them. In fact, the manual says there are 9 Avatara on the side of the light, but the only ones that appear in the game are Ulrich, Kuroi, Maldun, Mergen, and Ravikant. Keep in mind when it says the 9, it is only referring to there being 9 Avatara during the Great War. Obviously, we don't know who they all are, but this is just like not knowing who all the Fallen Lords are. Bungie did this on purpose so our imaginations can run wild and because they are not important to the story. We will see this trend as we go on. At the start of Myth the Fallen Lords, the situation is dire, and if Madrigal falls, the light looks like it will likely result in the end of the war. Luckily for the people of Crow's Bridge, they are able to convince the Legion to leave some men behind to defend them because they are rightly afraid based on what they have heard about the refugees that have come from the south. They are smart enough to convince them to leave some soldiers behind by offering them some food. It really isn't surprising that the Legion agreed to leave some men behind when they were offered food, as they are likely soldiers within the Legion that are from Crow's Bridge. Something else I want to bring up is that there are images related to the first mission that are in the Myth the Fallen Lords files relating to the journal entries that appear on Myth the Fallen Lords disc that do not appear in the game. It appears that perhaps these images were going to be part of the journals, but were removed at some point during production for whatever reasons. One of the images shows the townspeople begging for help from the Legion, and the other shows the townspeople offering food to the Legion and the soldiers contemplating whether to accept the bribe and protect the townspeople. I am glad they did so we can fight off the dark. Now let's watch the cutscene for Crow's Bridge. When you watch the video, notice how the river appears to be much deeper than how wide it is.
Hey, did you hear what happened to Avon's Grove?
Yeah, there were no bodies.
What'd they do with all the bodies?
There are a couple things we can learn from the intro cutscene. First off, obviously Avon's Grove has already been taken by the undead and used to raise more undead to fuel the Dark's army. The enemies under the bridge are the fresh undead from Avon's Grove, most likely. At least that is what it seems like the cutscene is suggesting. Another thing we can learn is that the warriors defending the bridge don't understand what happened to the dead at Avon's Grove. This seems a little odd because you would think after the war going on in the north for 7 years that the Legion would already know quite a bit about the undead army. Perhaps they just don't know that the Dark is raising their dead friends and they are confused about the missing bodies. Now Belial, the Watcher, is not the only one who could raise the undead at this point because he taught some of the Dark how to raise the dead, so don't start assuming that he had to be at Avon's Grove at this point, although it is plausible that he was. The units in this game are sprites and the terrain is fully 3D. If you open the map editor, Loathing, you can easily see that the triangles that make up the 3D landscape. The buildings and other structures in the game are typically 3D modeled structures. Some of the stuff in the game are also sprites. If you zoom in on a character and rotate around them, you can easily spot all the different images used. It is very well done and looks great. This was a way for them to reduce processing power and also make the game faster to develop. Making games run efficiently was much more important in those days because computers weren't what they are today. Let's introduce the units in this mission. First off, we have the warriors, who are equipped with swords and shields. The villager flavor text says this: "The humble farmers feed the West, suffering the worst in every conflict, conscripted before age 15 to fill the ranks of the army." From this we know that some of the warriors are barely teenagers and are forced to serve the light. The warrior is the basic melee unit in the game and has a chance to block attacks and not take damage. Next we have the Furbolg. As we discussed in the history of the world of myth, they are not humans and had a war with the humans after they were driven out of the Downs after a conflict with the Trow. They ended up in the Ermine and have an animosity toward the humans that was overcome due to the dire situation. They are expert marksmen with a bow, but in melee combat they attack with a fist and are extremely weak. They are a very important unit in the game and will help turn the tides of battle if used properly. In Myth the Fallen Lords, their unit description says this: "Long enemies of the civilized nation, the truce which brought the Furbolg and their famed bowmen into the light was forged by Khan, the great king, and Caliban during the Sword Age." There isn't anything else in the game about Khan, the great king of Caliban, or even the Sword Age. GURPS says that the Sword Age is equivalent to the Wolf Age, but this seems a bit odd because the way the flavor text reads, it would make you think that the Sword Age was a thing of the past. Anyways, I would assume that this was not long in the past because I think the main incentive for them having a truce would be to fight the Dark, and so the truce has probably happened within the last 50 years. Last on the side of the light are the dwarves, who are from the east. They are short, stocky creatures with a love of explosives and a hatred of the ghouls. They throw small bottles filled with an unstable concoction or mixture that explodes. They can also place satchel charges on the ground that are essentially unlike grenades that will explode when other explosives go off nearby or lit by other means. As we discussed in the last video, the dwarven cities of Stonheim and Madrigal have fallen to the ghouls and the Dark 50 years ago. They have been enemies of the ghoul for thousands of years. The dwarves have been close allies with the humans since the Cathbrug Empire was strong back in the Age of Reason. One of the dwarf unit's descriptions says this: hours after the fall of Mirgard, the dwarves defending Stonheim collapsed the Barbican, entombing 10,000 of their numbers behind as many tons of shattered rock. This means there are still lots of dwarves back in Stonheim despite the fall to the ghouls. Also, the dwarven hero unit description says this: he had been a mathematician and engineer before the Great War. When Stonheim fell to the ghouls and the university was destroyed, these skills served him well in the years to come. This suggests that there was some sort of university that was destroyed in Stonheim, and this is likely where the dwarves learned their alchemy to create their explosives. The dwarves are one of the most efficient killing machines in your arsenal and will probably get the most kills on a large portion of the missions. They are weak if an enemy reaches them, so make sure you protect them well. First, on the side of the Dark, we have the Thrall. Thrall literally means the state of being in someone's power or having great power over someone. This is exactly what the Thrall are. They're not zombies like the movies, but are corpses that have been reanimated by the use of magic, and they obey their master. The wield and action are very slow and can withstand considerable damage. Because they are dead, they do not breathe and can travel underwater. They were first created by Baalal and have thus been called the children of Baalal. Keep enough space around you to keep running away and hitting the Thrall with your range, and you won't have any trouble dealing with them. The Dark also have the Soulless on their side, who are Dark Archer equivalents. The Soulless, or Hollow Men, are souls that have been stolen from bodies through sorcery. They slowly float around the landscape and can traverse steep mountains and float over the water. They wield barbed javelins anointed with toxins that cause excruciating pain and can build up to fatal levels. The unit descriptions say this: called Hollow Men in the West, the Soulless are most feared by the sticky venom with which they anoint the javelins before battle. The wounds contaminated by the toxin never heal. They swept through the fields, corrupting all they touched, and the stench they left in the wake was that of the hastily abandoned slaughterhouse. Hollowed Men are coveted for their retained intellect. Creating these constructs, the mind of the subject must be a willing one. This requires the creator to divine the other thing that was once loved by the subject, a memory or ideal, and then extinguish that memory from its mind. Once its reason for living is gone, the soul is easily corrupted. Intelligence without conscience. Held aloft by the memory of legs, soulless are heralds of corruption. A miasma of pestilence and death constantly billow from their skeletal forms. Its foul odor potent enough to make seasoned warriors retch, and the very plants they touch wither into dusts of toxins. Another thing interesting is the death sounds that the soulless make when they die. There are whispers within these death sounds. The whispers are highly distorted and not easily heard. In fact, many of them are reversed and highly distorted. I do not know what they all say, but I have read that one of them says your mother wears army boots, if you are able to understand it. Dark also has a few goals in this mission. Goals are swift beasts who drag its knuckles as it lopes around on the ground. They are fast and thus good scouts. The weapon of choice is a cleaver longer than its lengthy and muscular arms. They're notoriously appalling, living in filth and collecting bits of garbage and remains to adorn themselves and their caves. They are always on the hunt and are a cowardly lot. Ghouls can pick up debris including axe blades, dwarven grenades, pus, and scattered limbs. They store these items in crude carrying sacks and throw them at enemies as a weapon. The pus is explosive materials that will freeze and damage your units, but we won't have to worry about that until later missions. They carry other items in their pouch, and this is what their unit description says in Myth 3 The Wolf Age. A ghoul sack is their most prized possession. They carry in it everything from dead meat to scavenged bits of bone and metal. Tucked away in the pouch are small trophies gained from the bodies of their vanquished enemies. It is believed that certain items, like fragments of skin or hair, contain the souls of the deceased and are sometimes offered to the dark gods during foul ceremonies. They dwell in the hostile Badlands near the Dwarven kingdoms. They have been enemies of the dwarves since their existence, and as we mentioned, they captured the Dwarven cities of Nirgard and Stoneheim 50 years ago. They are not an exceptionally bright race and were easily swayed to join the Darg because it allows them to fight the dwarves, and also because of their ignorance and sorcerous deception. They worship the forgotten dark gods, and it is said that only the ghouls remember their true names. Ghouls also have unworked stones that they worship and roll around with them. This is what one of their unit descriptions says. The ghouls worship enormous pieces of unworked stone, moved in antiquity to the open meadows far below their mountain dwellings. They alone remember the names of the dark gods. This is all the dark and light units in the mission. There are also some villages, but they tend to run around frantically. In Crow's Bridge we start with the entire map revealed. This makes sense because the area will be well known by the Legion after protecting the city for a while. When units get kills, they get veterancy. There are shields to show how many kills they have for light units, and there are other symbols that I don't know how to describe for how many levels they have survived for. When units get kills, they vet up and their attack speed will go up, as well as the accuracy for ranged units like dwarves and archers. The maximum a unit can vet up is 5 for all units, or at least that is my understanding. I've not found anything that conclusively says this or goes into detail about veterancy, but this is what a few people around the community have said. The number of missions a unit has survived in doesn't have an impact on veterancy. Units will only appear in the next mission if they were a part of the previous mission. HMP, who is part of the community, is currently working on a tool that will allow you to save your units for an indefinite amount of missions, and he will put up his file on the chain sometime in the near future. This will allow you to keep your veterans around. This tool will be especially helpful if you're playing the game co-op and want to keep the veteran units between sessions. Alright, let's get this mission started. Welcome to Crow's Bridge.
The bridge is being
Here
attacked.
comes the Thrall.
Let's get out of here. Yes. Got it.
So we're just going to retreat to this little hill, get away from these Thrall coming out of the water. Going to take our soldiers out of the city and bring them up to this hill right away. So we got some nice villagers down here. So we got a dwarf. We're going to preset him on 1.
Good luck at the bridge.
Ready?
Thank you. Got some furbolg. We'll put them on 2.
Yes, sir.
We got some warriors. We're going to put all these guys on 3.
We're moving.
So the really only threat in the army, right now they just have some thralls. They're easy to outrun, so they're not really a threat.
Got it.
But there's some goals. You don't gotta worry about the goals. We'll see them soon. You just protect your soldiers with some warriors close by, and they'll leave you alone. And if they do, when they do come attack, you just send your warriors at them, and they'll be fine. The only threat is the Soulless, and they're the ranged units. And so, what you can do, if you want, you can defend in the city and kind of use these buildings as a defense. For example, you can put like your dwarf here, and if they're coming this way, the Soulless can't hit your dwarf behind the building, and you can blow up all the Thrall as they come around the building, and then either you can rush the Soulless with your warriors or take them out with your archers and your dwarf. There's multiple ways to do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to pick off some of these Thrall that are guarding the bridge right away as we can. They're going to have a group of Soulless and Thrall either come from this way or this way. And when those come, we'll take them out. And then after that, they'll have the one more group of Soulless and Thrall come across the bridge and then come attack. And then we'll take them out, and then we'll just take out the ghouls whenever we can. So, and as long as we get rid of the Soulless, we'll have no issues. They're really the only threat in this mission.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes these ghouls think they can get my dwarf, and they attack right away.
Let's get him.
Come on! Why does he stop? I don't like that because now I don't have as much health on my dwarf for these Soulless, so that sucks. It's because he paused. I should just send my warriors up earlier. I was getting cocky.
Yes. Okay. Move here, move there.
Let's just save it right here so we don't have to redo all that. It's really just the running up here and everything that I don't want to have to force you guys to watch it again. Yeah, we're gonna be a little bit more cautious with our dwarves since he took some hits. We're kind of gonna dodge him though. Perfect.
Money.
We're on it.
You can see the ghouls are sitting back there. They're waiting for my chance to attack my archers and my dwarf. So
Take that. Got it. Got it. Yes.
there they come. They think they have a chance now, but they really don't. We'll make short work of them with our warriors. But they hurt one warrior a little bit, but that's about it. Okay, let's try to take out some of these Thrall before the next group comes.
We're moving.
You can see they boxed up, so that means they're on their way right now, so we don't really have a lot of time. So I'm going to go ahead and start placing a couple satchels.
Yes, sir.
Got it.
And we're going to kite them into the satchels.
Stand clear.
Mike up.
Really, we just got to kill these Soulless and it's
We're
over.
moving.
The dwarves, I mean the archers do have longer range than the Soulless.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Oh, the... Oh my gosh. I thought that freaking satchel didn't work and then it like blew up out of nowhere.
Yes.
That was actually pretty entertaining.
Yes.
What now?
This is what I don't like about having my dwarf injured right now, because it's going to make it a lot harder to get
Yes.
no casualties on this. But what we could do is we could use our warrior to kite him instead and keep this guy back a little bit more.
Got it. Yes.
We'll have the Soulless shoot at our
Ready.
warrior.
Move here, move there. Yes, sir. Okay.
That was mine.
Burn! Move here, move there. Mike up your
Step aside.
Yes, sir.
Hey, step aside.
Okay, let's... So I'm just trying to get rid of these Soulless,
Step
really.
aside.
Catch!
Yes, sir.
Make a hole. Get out of the way. Make way for the dwarf. Where?
Yes.
That was mine.
kind of worried that they're going to hit him again. They're getting close.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Got it.
One thing we can do is we can kind of run away and send our archer or our warriors around.
Yeah.
And kind of try to split them up. This is so messy. So messy.
Make up your mind. Okay. Yes.
I swear I'm not this bad.
Got it. We're moving.
Stand clear.
Hey, step aside.
Got him.
Hey, make up your mind.
We're moving. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're on it. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Step aside.
On my way.
Okay, this will get rid of the Soulless.
Let's get him.
Okay, let's try to get this guy back.
Yes, sir.
Get everything under control.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I'm going to send in this one with a lot of health first. Okay, and then we'll take care of these guys.
Money.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we'll let the warriors take care of that guy. Awesome. And that's pretty much it. That was about as messy as we can make it, but it worked. So, our warriors got quite a bit of kills that time. That was, that was just because the dwarf messed up at the beginning, so I had to be cautious with him around the Soulless. So, the archers got 8, the dwarves got 22, and the warriors got 14. So, on the winning screen, we see an image of a dwarf, furbolg, and a couple of warriors being congratulated on their way to victory as they walk through the town. If you lose the mission, we see an image of Crow's Bridge burning to the ground, except that Crow's Bridge doesn't have a wall and the village is a lot smaller than in-game. You might think that there is a lake next to the town from the picture, but I think this is just a shadow from the flames. You can see the river on the right side of this picture. The road on the bottom is likely the road that leads to Otter Ferry. I'll show you in the next mission that it is likely called the King's Highway. There isn't much for Easter eggs in this mission. You can look inside the butcher's shop and see what is on the walls and such. It has a lot of detail for a game that came out in its day. The barrels around the buildings can be blown up to reveal red apples, green cucumbers, and brown sausage. There is also a villager who will talk about his pumpkins.
Move here.
What's going to
Move
happen to my
there.
pumpkins?
As a bonus for today's video, I wanted to talk about some tips for mastering the controls in Myth 2 Soulblighter. I am mostly going to focus on the controls you should definitely pay attention to and try to cover some of the other controls that you may have not noticed in the War Against the Fallen. I would highly recommend looking at all the controls in the preferences and slowly learning them and reconfiguring them as needed. Take a look at the Myth the Fallen Lore's quick reference card. On the most part, the controls in Myth 2 Soulblighter are the same, with a few tweaks. Rather than having the right click deselect units in Myth 2, the right click by default is the gesture key. This command makes it easy to get your formations to face the right way. The right click can also be modified to deselect units or to attack the ground. You can also choose which way they face by left clicking one of the units and dragging the mouse in the direction they are to face. If this gets on your nerves because you are trying to draw a box, you can turn off the left click doesn't gesture option. The camera in the game moves too slow by default to play at a high level. You can speed it up by going into Fear and editing the observer constants. There is also a download by SCS with some presets on the Tain called Myth Camera Speed Kit. Configure this and try to increase the speed as you get more comfortable with the controls. There are two ways to do presets with the current Myth 2 Soulblighter patches. The default method is faster at selecting formations, while the alternate method is faster at setting and recalling presets. I would recommend you test each of these and decide for yourself which you like better. My personal preference is the default method because that is what I am used to. The stop units command is super handy when you are trying to keep your dwarves and archers from blowing up your soldiers when they engage in combat. Make sure you set this key to something handy. Attacking the ground is very useful for a lot of the ranged units in the game like dwarves. You can attack where units are going to end up, blow up your satchels from afar, and land precise hits. Learn to use this often. The guard command is also handy and will cause your units to attack if anything comes into their range, but they will not move. The scatter units and retreat commands are more helpful in multiplayer than the single player because you are probably going to pause a lot and manually move your forces when in danger on single player. The size of the overhead map can also be changed by shift clicking and dragging the map. Another thing I did not know about until recently is there is an easy way to modify the formations in the game. If you open Fear and go into the formations file, you can change the formations to better suit your playstyle. Maybe you want to make your lines longer or your boxes tighter. All of these options are accessible through Fear. By default, Caps Lock will put selection boxes around all your units and show health bars. You can modify this command to show health bars without boxes, show player stats, or to show the chat backlog. I don't use it often, but you can use the waypoint command to send your units in a direct route and to send them in an endless loop. If you do ever play online with other people, absolutely make sure that you remember the detach units command. This is how you distribute units to your teammates. The inventory command really only comes into play on some of the community-made plugins. I typically play with the default control schemes, but will probably be trying a few different changes to the controls as I go forward. One change I like is to put zoom on the mouse wheel because that feels more natural for me, and it also frees up the CMV key if I decide to use them for something else later on. There is a cheat to automatically win and lose any mission by hitting Control and plus or minus. Do your best to beat each mission on your own or you'll miss out on the enjoyment and satisfaction of beating the game on your own. This covers it for the controls. I hope you enjoyed the video and we'll see you next time in A Traitor's Grave.